Lorenzo Moretti's life was built on precision, precise investments, precise timing, precise instincts that had turned a once bankrupt family company into an empire worth billions. Yet on this particular morning, precision escaped him. Jet lag pressed against his eyelids, and the constant hum of business calls had left him drained. It was 7:12 a.m. when he stepped onto a quiet New York street, shoulders heavy from a red-eye flight. He wanted silence, anonymity, and a good Italian cappuccino, something that tasted like home. That's how he ended up at La Campana Blu, a small blue-fronted café glowing warmly between cold skyscrapers. When he pushed open the door, a gentle bell chimed. The café smelled of roasted beans and fresh pastry. Soft jazz drifted through the air, and early customers murmured low conversations. It was peaceful, exactly the opposite of the corporate storm waiting outside. A waitress approached, and he noticed her before anything else. Dark chestnut hair tied in a simple ponytail. Sharp, attentive eyes. A quiet confidence in the way she moved, graceful but alert. Her name tag read Elena, a small name, but it suited her. "Good morning," she said in perfect English, but there was something European in her tone. Her voice was soft, musical. Lorenzo glanced at the menu but didn't bother reading. Instinct took over. "Un cappuccino, per favor," he said, forgetting for a moment that he wasn't in Rome. Elena's eyes widened just slightly, not in confusion but recognition. Then she answered smoothly, elegantly. "Subito, signore, right away, sir." The accent, the confidence. She wasn't guessing, she was fluent. He watched her disappear behind the counter, intrigued. He pulled from his coat a thick cream envelope, confidential documents for a massive real estate acquisition his company had been negotiating for months. His manager had insisted on handing them to him personally at the airport, warning him not to trust anyone else. The deal was sensitive, worth more than entire companies. Lorenzo slipped the envelope under his palm, unaware that Elena's eyes had flicked toward it for a fraction of a second with quiet, trained observation. Minutes later, as he waited, the cafe door opened again. A tall, well-dressed man in a navy suit stepped inside. He scanned the room quickly, almost anxiously, until his gaze locked onto Lorenzo. The stranger's expression brightened unnaturally. "Signor Moretti," he exclaimed, striding forward with too much enthusiasm. "Finally, I've found you." Lorenzo straightened slightly. "Found him? Do I know you?" he asked. The man laughed lightly, waving off the question. "I'm Marco Farini. We spoke on the phone this morning about finalizing the contract. I have the papers here." He placed a folder on the table. Lorenzo didn't touch it. There had been no call that morning. And he didn't recognize this man at all. Still, Lorenzo opened the folder casually, masking his suspicion. The documents looked official, at first glance. But his business instincts twitched, warning him something wasn't right. "I was told this deal required utmost secrecy, yes?" Lorenzo asked. "Of course," the man said quickly. "That's why I came personally. Just sign the first page. The others can be handled later." Too rushed, too rehearsed, too pushy. Before Lorenzo could reply, Elena returned, carrying his cappuccino on a porcelain saucer. Her smile was polite, but something in her eyes had changed, sharp, intent, assessing. She placed the cup gently on the table, but instead of stepping away, she angled her body slightly between Lorenzo and the stranger. Pretending to tidy the table, she slid closer. Then, in a whisper soft enough only Lorenzo could hear, in perfect Italian, she said, "Questo non è quello vero." This isn't the real one. Lorenzo felt every hair on his neck rise. He didn't look at her directly, but his mind snapped awake. His eyes lowered to the papers again, this time truly searching. Subtle inconsistencies suddenly screamed at him. Wrong phrasing, missing seals, a watermark slightly off-center. She was right, but how did she know? Before he could ask anything, the man interrupted impatiently. "Is something wrong, Signor Moretti? The signature, please." Elena kept her posture calm, professional, but her hand trembled just slightly as she pretended to wipe the table. She whispered again, "Don't sign, he's not from your company. Please trust me." Lorenzo responded quietly, also in Italian, "How can you tell?" Her voice didn't waver. "I worked in legal auditing in Milan. These papers are forged," and he used the word proprietà vincolata incorrectly on page 3. A real lawyer wouldn't make that mistake. That was enough. Lorenzo nodded once, subtle, controlled, decisive. He turned back to the man, switching to English with a cool, sharp tone. "You said we spoke this morning. Odd, Because I was on a plane for 9 hours. The man's face paled. He started to gather the papers hastily. It was a misunderstanding. No, Lorenzo said, standing up. You came to scam me. The stranger bolted. He grabbed the forged documents and sprinted toward the door. But Lorenzo was already chasing him. Despite long hours of travel, adrenaline kicked in. He caught the man by the back of his suit jacket just meters from the exit. The stranger struggled violently, knocking over chairs, shouting protests. With a forceful move, Lorenzo pinned him against a table. Cups shattered. Customers gasped. Call the police. Someone yelled. Elena rushed forward, clutching her phone, speaking rapidly to emergency services in flawless English. Within minutes, officers stormed inside, handcuffed the scammer, and dragged him out as he shouted lies and excuses that no one believed. When the chaos finally settled, and the cafe returned to a trembling quiet, Lorenzo approached Elena slowly. She stood near the counter, hands clasped together, as though bracing for trouble. Her manager hovered nervously in the background, unsure whether she'd get praised or fired. Lorenzo stopped in front of her. You didn't have to get involved, he said softly. Yes, she answered, meeting his eyes steadily, I did. You were about to sign something dangerous. Most people wouldn't risk it, he said. She exhaled, looking down at her apron. I've seen scams ruin people before. I couldn't watch it happen again. Again. The word lingered with weight. He wanted to ask what she meant, but her manager called her sharply, ordering her back to work. Elena gave him a small, apologetic smile and turned away, slipping back into the rhythm of a busy morning. But Lorenzo watched her go with a feeling he couldn't name, something between gratitude, curiosity, and the first spark of admiration. He had come here looking for quiet. Instead, he found a mystery. And he wasn't about to walk away from it. Lorenzo Moretti didn't usually return to the same place twice, not cafes, not cities, not even relationships. His world moved too fast for repetition. But the next morning, at 7:05 a.m., he walked back into La Campana Blue with a clear intention. He wasn't here for the cappuccino. He was here for her. Elena, the woman who saved him from a multi-million-dollar scam with a single whispered sentence. He scanned the cafe. She wasn't at the counter. Not carrying plates, not wiping tables. Panic flickered, until he spotted her in the corner, tying her apron. She looked tired, as though she'd slept little, but her eyes still held that calm, sharp light. When she looked up and saw him, she froze. Signor Moretti, just Lorenzo, he corrected gently. If you keep calling me Signor, I might start feeling older than I am. Her lips tugged into a small smile, but he didn't miss the tension in her posture, like she expected trouble. He approached her slowly. Can we talk? He asked. I'm working, she said quietly. So I'll buy a coffee every 10 minutes if I have to, he replied. I'm very persistent. For the first time, she laughed. A soft, warm sound he hadn't expected from someone who carried so much seriousness. Fine, she said, but only for a moment. They stepped aside near the window, where morning sunlight spilled across the floor. I didn't get to thank you properly yesterday, Lorenzo began. You saved me from signing a deal that could have damaged my entire company. It wasn't luck, she said simply. I recognized the scam immediately. Because of your past work in Milan. He pressed gently. Her smile dimmed, replaced with quiet reluctance. I used to work in legal auditing, yes, she said slowly. Good position, promising future. What happened? She hesitated. He could see her debating whether to trust him. Finally, she exhaled. I exposed a corruption case inside my own firm, she said. It involved a senior partner. They silenced it, and they tried to silence me. So I left the country. Lorenzo's brows lowered, anger stirring on her behalf. You were punished for doing the right thing. She shrugged, though her voice trembled faintly. Italy is small. Rumors travel fast. No one wanted to hire the troublemaker. So I came here. I work 2 jobs. I send money home. It's not what I imagined for my life. Her vulnerability hung in the air, honest and unmasked. You deserve better, Lorenzo said. She gave him a sad smile. Maybe, but life doesn't owe us fairness. He leaned forward, his tone firm. I owe you something. No, she whispered. You owe me nothing. He admired her more every second. Before he could respond, the cafe door swung open sharply. 2 police officers stepped inside. Elena stiffened immediately, fear flashing across her face. They walked straight to Lorenzo. Mr. Moretti, we located the gang connected to the fraud attempt yesterday. They're part of an international ring. We need your statement. Lorenzo nodded. Of course. Then one officer added, the gang knows a waitress intervened. They asked about her. Alina's face drained of color. Lorenzo didn't think. He moved closer to her, protective instinct flaring. What do you mean they asked? The officer lowered his voice. The suspect screamed that his plan failed because of the girl. We can provide protection if necessary. Elena shook her head immediately. No, I don't want trouble. I don't want attention. Lorenzo touched her arm gently. Elena, they know your face. They know what you did. She swallowed hard. I can't stop working. I need my jobs. I have rent, my mother's medication in Italy, my brother's school fees. You shouldn't be here, he said, his voice firmer than before. Not while they're still searching for who exposed them. She stepped back, defiant but trembling. I can't just disappear. But Lorenzo had already made up his mind. Then let me help you. She shook her head. No, I don't want money, or favors, or... I'm offering you a job, he interrupted. That made her quiet. He continued, you're sharp, observant, fluent in 3 languages. You catch details my entire legal team sometimes misses. I have space in my company for someone with your skills. Elena blinked at him. A job, me, that's impossible. It's not, he said. I'm the CEO. I decide what's possible. But her expression remained conflicted. Fear, hope, disbelief all swirling. I can't accept a job because I helped you, she whispered. You earned it long before that scammer walked in, he said gently. You're brilliant, you're brave, you deserve a life that matches your abilities. Her throat moved as she swallowed the emotion rising inside her. And, he added softly, you'd be safer with my team, not alone in a cafe where anyone can walk through the door. Elena touched the edge of a table, grounding herself. It feels like, too much. Then let me make it simple, he said. Come to my office tomorrow at 9. You only have to listen. No commitment. If you say no, I won't ask again. She looked at him, really looked, beyond the billionaire, beyond the influence, beyond the power. And something in her gaze softened. Okay, she finally whispered. I'll come. Relief washed over him, not because she agreed to the job, but because she finally trusted him enough to try. But the moment was cut short. A loud shatter broke across the cafe. Someone outside had thrown a rock at the window. A note was tied to it. Elena's breath caught in her throat. Lorenzo grabbed the note and unfolded it. 3 words. Messy handwriting. Threatening. Stay quiet, rat. Elena stepped back, trembling. That was when Lorenzo made another decision, one even he hadn't planned. You're coming with me, he said, voice steady, protective. Right now, until this is over, you're not staying here alone. Elena stared at him, shock softening into something deeper, trust, maybe. Or simply exhaustion from being strong for too long. Why are you doing this? She whispered. He didn't look away from her. Because you saved me, he said. Now it's my turn. She exhaled shakily, then nodded. And just like that, Elena's life, once small, quiet, and filled with fear, shifted into a new orbit. An orbit that included a billionaire who had no intention of letting anything happen to her.